Well, good morning to the Rainbow Baptist Church family. It is now Tuesday, the 5th of May, and we're on to day 40 of lockdown. Can you believe it? Racing along. And folk, I think we're facing issues. It's not just in terms of the COVID-19 season and the implications for us individually and in our marriages and families and workplace. But let's not lose sight of the fact that in and through this particular pandemic, folk are still struggling with the issues that they had 40 days ago in terms of health and finance and work and marriage and parenting and education and issues within the workplace and colleagues and so forth. You might not be face to face in an open plan office or on a factory floor, but you're still interacting in various ways maybe, and those issues haven't gone away. And I think it's particularly important as we deal with the global pandemic, but our own individual lives as well, even during this season. And folk are asking the question, in terms of what's happening and the way things are unfolding, where is God? Where is God in the midst of all of these issues? What is God doing? What's God doing with my life? What's God doing with my family? How can God be doing what He's doing? How can He possibly, even as we saw yesterday from Romans 8, bring about good? How can there be any good and wholesome purposes from these issues? I'm okay with the sovereignty thing, but where's this going in terms of good outcomes? When's this going to end? When's COVID going to come to an end? How many months are we still going to endure lockdown or in whatever level we're at in terms of South Africa? So those are questions that have been asked. Is God powerful enough to handle the way things are unfolding? And more particularly, is God wise enough? See, I would suggest to you that we're not so much under threat with the issue of God's sovereignty and God's power. We're okay with, as we saw yesterday, God being in heaven and Him doing whatever He pleases. But as He does whatever He pleases with all of that infinite divine power and majesty, is it done in a wise way? Is it done in a way that actually achieves good for me? Because I don't necessarily see those outcomes, is what people are saying. And in many ways, this turns into an attack on the wisdom of God. It's not an attack on His sovereignty, but it's an attack on His wisdom. Is God running my life, my family, my church, our country, our world, history, in a way that is actually wise? Because as humans, we don't see that oftentimes. And so we point fingers and attack not the sovereignty of God or the power of God, but the wisdom of God. And this morning, on the 5th of May, I just want to poke and prod into that particular issue, that we get the wisdom of God clear in our minds in very, very simple terms. And I'm going to point you to a couple of passages. Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 29 would be one of them, where we read, "This also comes from the Lord of hosts, Yahweh, the Almighty One, that He is wonderful in counsel and excellent in wisdom." What a great phrase. God is excellent in wisdom. His wisdom surpasses absolutely everything. The very best of human wisdom that we can muster up doesn't even come close to the excellencies and the perfections of God's wisdom. We jump a couple of chapters later to Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 28. We read these words: "Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable." Again, we're back to that great phrase, the understanding of God, the wisdom of God can't be plumbed. You can't plumb the depths of that. It's unsearchable. It's too big. It's too mysterious. It's too grand. It's too complex. And our little minds can't get around the wisdom and the understanding of God. We see the wisdom of God even in terms of salvation. That wonderful passage in Isaiah chapter 55, and as Isaiah continues to write there in verse 9, he says, "For as high as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." God is just altogether different from us in terms of His understanding and His wisdom and His knowledge in terms of how He actually makes things happen. Which is all fine and well. I hope that in and of itself is an encouragement for you. But what about me personally? What about my own life? What about my own issues? And for that, we need to turn to Job. Remember Job? I touched on him a bit yesterday, even as I was looking at the sovereignty of God. Do we accept good from God and not evil? As Job said to his wife. But Job was afflicted. I mean, he pretty much lost everything. He lost his business, he lost his possessions, he lost his livestock, he lost his family, He lost his health at the end as well. Job is not in a good space. This guy has just been buffeted on every side by every conceivable affliction and calamity. And we get his three counselors coming, Bildad and Zophar and Eliphaz, and a little later on, Elihu jumps into the mix as well, and they offer him pretty much bad counsel all the way through. And Job, in the mid-chapters of Job, starts to waver. His kind of strong confidence is a little bit rocked, and he starts to question God. God, what are you doing? It doesn't make sense to me. I've lived a good life. I've been a blameless man. I've been a righteous man. God, what are you doing? I just don't get it. I don't deserve this. It just doesn't make sense to me. My mind can't compute why I'm going through what I'm going through. And they're right at the end of Job, in Job chapter 38, 39, 40, 41, God just opens up this dazzling display. He speaks to God, to Job at least, out of the whirlwind, and he reveals himself in very, very real ways with these almost machine gun questions. Job, where were you when I? Where were you when I? Are you able to do what I'm able to do? And God points him up to the cosmos, and he points him down to the rock badgers, and he turns his attention to Leviathan and Behemoth, and just the intricacies and the bigness of the created world in every conceivable way. And right at the end of that, Job is just, he's just devastated. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you, and I despise myself and repent in sackcloth and ashes. But what is God doing? God puts himself on display in all of this creative power and all of this creative genius. And we would look at that and go, well, God's proving to Job that he's powerful. Or God's proving to Job that he's sovereign. Or God is proving to Job that he's able and has the means and the resources and the capacity to run the universe. But Job's never asked that question. Job isn't asking, is God powerful? Job isn't asking, is God sovereign? Job isn't asking if God is on his throne. He's okay with all of that. Job is asking, God, what are you doing? Because I just don't understand and I just don't get it. Why does God point to the created world and to nature to teach Job a lesson? What is God trying to communicate? The answer for us is actually not found in Job. It's found in another aspect of wisdom literature. Wisdom literature are those books in the Bible given to us to help us live life wisely in the fallen, broken world. And that a couple of the Psalms are wisdom literature, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, and Job. And those are the wisdom books of the Bible. And folk, in Proverbs chapter 8, we actually get the key that unlocks the story of Job. And I just want to read it for you. Proverbs chapter 8, picking up at verse 22. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of old. Ages ago I was set up at the first, before the beginning of the earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no springs abounding with water. Before the mountains had been shaped, before the hills I was brought forth. Before he had made the earth with its fields, or the first of the dust of the world. When he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep, when he made firm the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep, when he assigned to the sea its limits, so that the waters might not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him like a master workman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and delighting in the children of man. That is wisdom speaking. That is God's wisdom speaking. And wisdom, in a sense, is saying, I was with God as he made the world and as he sustains the world. And so, folk, when we take Proverbs chapter 8, that's the key that unlocks for us Job 38, 39, 40, 41, etc. Because what God is proving to Job in those chapters is that he is infinitely wise. Job, when you look at the magnitude of the cosmos, when you look at the intricacies of the human body, when you look at the magnitude and the complexity of everything around you, it's not so much showing my power, although that's on display as well, but it's proving to you, Job, that I am wise. There is nothing happening in the created world outside of the wisdom of God. That's what God's proving to Job. And then the question comes, Job, if you're okay with my wisdom in all of that dazzling array in the world around you, in the universe around you, why do you dare think, little man, you little puny, pathetic, mortal fallible, sinful man, why do you think that I would get it wrong in terms of your own individual life? The point that God is making to Job is, trust me, trust my wisdom. Don't just trust my power and my sovereignty, but trust my wisdom to run your life in the best way possible. I run my universe with clockwork precision. Job, how do you think, how do you dare think that I get it wrong in terms of your own individual life as well? And folks, that's the lesson that we need to learn in terms of the wisdom of God. Absolutely everything happens under the sovereign control of God, that's true, but wisely, wisely. God is running his universe and our lives and our country, even through COVID, with absolute wisdom. Think back to when you were a small kid and you were going on holiday. You're excited to go there, down to the beach or down to the mountains or to grandma's house or whatever the case might be. And all you did, quite frankly, was what? You jumped into the back seat of the car and went to sleep. You left the driving, the route, the finances, the where to stop, when to change gears, what speed to stick to. You left that up to mom or dad in the driver's seat. You trusted their wisdom as the adult, as the grown-up, to get you there safely. And you just chilled, slept, and played your games. And folk, in a sense, that's what we need to learn. The wisdom of God is such that we might not know the outcomes. We might not know the big picture, but there is a big picture. God in his wisdom is at work in our lives, even through COVID-19 season and every other aspect of life. Can we trust him that our Father in heaven has his hands on the steering wheel of our lives, and he is going to get us to our preferred destination safely in the best way possible? And folks, I'm just going to close with the words of the Apostle Paul from Romans chapter 11. Incidentally, Jared's already chosen that as the call to worship for this coming Sunday, so look out for that even as we come to worship on Sunday the 10th of May as well. Is it the 10th? Yes, it is the 10th. I'll get my maths right. But the Apostle Paul says the following. Oh, the depth of the riches and the wisdom and the knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and how inscrutable his ways. For who has known the mind of the Lord, and who has been his counselor? Or he who has given him a gift that he might need to be repaid? For from him, and through him, and to him are all things. To him be glory forever. Amen. May that be an encouragement to you on this Tuesday morning, and go and trust the wisdom of your Father in heaven to run your life in the best way possible.